Hi everyone, and welcome back to the third and final episode of our MS Reporter series, MS, My Baby and Me. So we'd like to round up the series with a few insights. So we are just 3 mums with MS, and we are at very different stages and from completely different circumstances. And I think all of us were taken aback by how much we shared in our experiences, and also how much was reflected back to us in feedback from the whole community. I found that understanding when I was speaking to Carla and Grace, and we hope that our reflections might also be helpful to you if you're in a similar position.
What were your lifelines? Things that really helped you?
I really do feel like my MS nurse kind of talked me through quite a lot. She signposted quite a bit to me later, I feel like, and that's why I say I wish I'd reached out to someone earlier, even if it was just my MS nurse, because I think now there's an awful lot more information. But back then, you know, even if she just said to me, do you know what, Carla, I hear this a lot, because this is what all my MS mums tell me when they go through. Even that would have just made me feel like, okay, what I'm going through is really normal.
My lifeline was very similar. I didn't have an MS nurse, obviously, but it was that reaching out, and I reached out to my family. So when I was diagnosed, I actually moved my entire family. Because we lived in quite an isolated area. My husband, his job takes him away a lot, so I was on my own basically. So I moved back to my hometown, to my wider family and all my old friends, and to basically my support network. If you get a break, if somebody takes that burden for a tiny bit for you, it kind of gives you a new perspective. And I know at that time I felt like it really didn't matter what happened to me. I'd just been diagnosed with MS, but having that break made me feel like any challenge was not insurmountable.
And honestly, like, I don't want to blow smoke up his, but my husband's been great. Like, he's been so good. I can fault him for so many other things, but I can't fault him for this. He was really gets it. If I have a worry, he doesn't dismiss it. He says, he encourages me to speak to my neurologist or to speak to my MS nurse and reach out. And they've been great, but I mean, they've been really busy with other stuff currently happening. But they've still been able to answer me and stuff. But I have to say that my lifeline has been friends and my husband.
I feel like, sometimes, even if we don't have family or a partner, I think kind of reaching out to social care or to sort of healthcare professionals, I think was really, really key, because we shouldn't struggle alone. We don't have to, actually, but also we shouldn't have to do that. One of the things I would love to have done differently is, though, if I had just preempted some of the things that might happen with the MS. So if I'd had a bit of a chat with my neurologist or my MS nurse before, because I was diagnosed obviously before, and if I'd have had a chat and said, do I need anything, do I need to think about anything, do I need to up my vitamin D, like simple stuff, like do I need to come off anything, what do I do, maybe like a month before, then I'd felt a little bit more confident. Maybe I feel like maybe I'd have done everything I could, whereas I think I was last minute scrambling around, kind of, dealing with all these things that I could have maybe preempted. And even if they don't happen, at least they're in place before baby arrives. But I just feel like maybe there are some sort of things that I missed that I could have done differently. What would you guys have done differently, do you think?
I actually wouldn't have done anything differently, I don't think. I wish I had known. I wish at that time I could have seen where I am now. I think I worried a lot in the beginning that things that I was, like we talked about before, things that I felt I was failing to do because of my physical problems at the time. I was constantly automatically blaming anything. So if she had trouble sleeping, it was because I'd put her in front of the TV too much. If this was happening, if she wasn't developing quick enough, I hadn't done enough activities and hadn't run around the garden enough, all of that stuff. She didn't need all of these standards that I had set for myself. No matter whether I was going through a relapse, whatever my symptoms were, I could still give her the attention and the love.
I really appreciate you saying that, and I'm going to totally take that with me, because obviously, as much as I have these talks with myself where I feel that because I can't do that, I can do this, but because I can't do this, I can do this, so therefore I'm just as good as anybody other. I don't know. I'm always trying to make myself feel better when I can't do something by saying I can do something else. But the point is, it makes me feel good that you just said, like, as long as you love them and you give them all this attention and that's all they need, really.
So I was just going to say just a few things that came from some feedback that we went wider to for the Mums UK Facebook group. Don't let people in unless they're going to be helpful. So we're going to get a lot of visitors. But if we're fatigued or whatever, then it's probably worth saying no, and not to be afraid to say no. Pace yourself was one of the bits of advice. Definitely not push yourself too hard. Don't be surprised if you have to grow into the role. It is a learning curve, because it's more than a learning curve than most parents, actually, because we do have the MS to contend with. Even if it's quiet, like mine was, suddenly it can come out of nowhere, and you get sort of lulled into false insecurity. So I think that lady was right. And like you said, I think one of the biggest things that came out is that you will cope as a parent with MS. People have had MS for a very long time, and we've been parents for even longer. So, people have done it, but you just need to give yourself a bit of a break and sort of get yourself through it as much as you're able to.
Should we maybe all share one of our own positive memories from that time? Grace, for you, it'll be more of a recent memory for you.
I would say that giving birth was one of the best experiences, and it was something I'll never forget, and I dare I say it, I really enjoyed it. I was prepared for a cesarean, and so I had read that if you've got problems with your legs, it'll be really hard to push, so they'll just give you a cesarean, and all these bits of information which is not accurate. And so then when it got to my birth, it was not my birth, Fleur's birth. When it got to her birth, I was really, it was just wonderful. Everything about it was wonderful, and I pushed her out, and it was wonderful. And that experience was like one of my favorite. I will never forget it.
I think for people with MS, we are prepared for that in a way. We do have this experience of having to know what's going on in our bodies and having to respond to it and maybe be prepared for the unexpected. And I think I remember a big thing with childbirth for a lot of women is having to give up that control. That in a way, that's the scariest thing over and above the other things that people talk about more. And actually, I know now I would be much better equipped after having had MS. So my positive memory is a bit different. Is from the first day of spring after having my daughter. So my daughter was a winter baby, so she would have been a bit ahead of you, Grace. She would have been 4 or 5 months, and I just I will never forget this day. We'd had an awful day. The house was a mess. I think I'd been crying. I'd failed to get to baby group. That warmth from the first day of spring. We just went and sat in the garden, and it was just me and my daughter. And it was kind of the first time she really discovered what grass was. And that was really exciting. And listening to the bees and just rolling around. And we just sat in the garden for hours. And it was just such a lovely feeling of togetherness. And I just never forget it.
Having a baby is so special. There is literally nothing like it in the entire planet. I really don't believe I've ever loved this way before in my entire life, or as much. I mean, it really is just like shocking how much. But my one is, so I didn't have a fantastic birth. I had like 5 hours of pure hell, basically. No drugs. It was like, oh my God, what's he doing? He came early, like a month. And I wasn't prepared. Even if I had been prepared, I wouldn't have been prepared. Because babies are doing that. So what I realised is that, those first few months, I never ever before put myself first in any shape or form. Always everybody else first. And I think I had no choice in the first few months but to kind of take a step back and just look after myself. And I've literally never done that before. And that was probably the biggest thing I took from it, was that I'm actually a lot more resilient than I had ever thought I could be. My positive thing is, and it's something that's carried on, is this thought that actually no matter what comes, whether it's an MS relapse or a life issue like, you know, what's going on in the world now, whatever it is, we will deal with, and we'll deal with it in our own ways, but we are strong enough to do it.